Hello everyone. My name is Sabelo Mtetwa, and I'm the tech mentor at the Developer Student Club UCT. And I'll be presenting to you on this workshop how to implement the Yoco API, which is a payment system that you can use on your website. Yeah. So the technology I'll be using is the Node.js framework, which is a JavaScript library. It's a JavaScript framework, and some HTML templates. This is a technical, it's a technical workshop, so you can code along if you want to. Let me just share my screen. So the final products of what I'll be building will look like this, something like this. So there are two types of implementation, which is the inline and the pop-up. The inline is just a form that you embed on your website, or you can also choose to create a pop-up. When you click a button, pop-up is created. Cool. So that's what we'll be looking at today. Cool. So yeah, I'll just start creating the project, and you can code along if you want to. Cool. I'll be using a text editor called it's called VS Code. You can use any one you like as long as it has a terminal where you can run your Node.js. So, and if you don't know Node, I'll try to explain.
I think there's someone has his hands up. Yeah, hands up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can take questions.
Hi, Sabelo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Sabelo and Martin, thank you very much, gents, for setting up this workshop. I'm calling representing Old Mutual, so we're very interested in hearing what you guys are here to present. Sabelo, I can see that you're jumping straight into the technical detail. Can you just take a step back for us and just explain and give us more context on what Yoco actually is?
Oh, okay. So Yoco, thank you for the question. And thanks to know that we have people from other companies, representatives from other companies. So Yoco is it's a company which implements an online payment system. So you can have a payment option on your website using a Yoco API. They also have some cards, some card machines where you can use to make in-person payments. It's for small businesses. So any small businesses you have, you can use Yoco for either online or in-person payments. So in this case, in this workshop, I'll be explaining how to implement the API on your website, how to include it on your HTML website. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does answer the question. Thanks, Sabelo.
Okay, thank you very much. Cool. So the first thing I want to do, since I'm creating a node project, I'll initialize it by using the command npm init. Just a second. I'll just run the terminal. Wait a second. Okay, it seems like I have a technical issue. Give me a second. At the moment, I already have the code on GitHub. You can check the code on GitHub. I think Martin should send a link on the chat. Cool. And so I'll create a node project. I'll initialize a node project using npm init and y. This command creates a file called packet.json, which holds information about your application. So if you go to the file, you'll see information about the app, which is the name of the package. I'd like to change that, maybe call it digital payment. And you also get your version and the description. Also, this is the important stuff. I want to use the scripts. I won't be testing it in this project, so I'll just use the start script to run the server. And to run the server, I'll be using a package called nodemon. So nodemon is it's a development package to run your server, your node server without refreshing and stuff like that. So I'll save this and install some dependencies. So for us to be able to make use of the server, we need to install a few dependencies. One of them is the Express. Express is the server. And I also need to use Axios. Axios is a package which allows you to make HTTP requests. And then I'll also use Bootstrap for the design, for the simple design, and jQuery for the UI. And I'll save these into the package.json file as dependencies. So this command that says we're using npm package to install, I means install these packages. We'll install the Express package, the Axios, Bootstrap, and JSON package. So Express is for the server, Axios is to make the HTTP requests, and Bootstrap is for the design, the CSS, it's a CSS framework, and jQueries, we'll use that for JavaScript instead. And then if you go over to your package.json, you can see that they are saved as dependencies. And another thing that was created is this this folder, node modules, which contains all your dependencies, like the files from the dependencies. We've installed Bootstrap, so we have Bootstrap files. We have the CSS and JS folder, which we'll be using. And we also installed Axios. We also installed jQuery. So we'll be using these files to on our front end. And then from this point, I want to start by creating our files. So we'll have in our server, we'll only make use of the index file, only one file for our server, and we'll call it index.js. So this is just a command to create a file. And to put our static files, our front end will create a directory or a folder called public. And inside that folder, we'll put some three files, an HTML file, a CSS file, and a JavaScript file. So inside public folder, we'll create a HTML file, and maybe we'll call it a payment.html. And another one, which is payment.css, and JavaScript file. These are created under the public folder. Cool. So this is all you need for this project. These are all these files. This is all you need for the project. So I'll start setting up the backend, the server, and other stuff from the backend. In order to listen for the server, we'll import the Express package. We'll import it using the require Express. We'll also import a package called path to locate our static files. So for path, you don't need to install it because it's built-in. You just import it. Okay, and then I'll get an app from Express to do everything, everything in the server. So the first thing I want to do is I want to host all the static files in the node server. I'll do that using a middleware called express.static. So app.use allows you to make use of middlewares. In this case, it's express.static for static files. And then we'll locate the folder that has the static files using path.join. Their name and public. So what this does is that it locates your public folder from the current directory, the current folder, which is the folder where your index file is. In this case, it's the root folder. And then it will go to public, and it'll find the static files. Another thing, we're making use of Bootstrap and jQuery, so we'll also host them since they're also static files. we'll do the same thing. Path.join their name. And so for Bootstrap, you'll find the folder or the files under node modules, Bootstrap, and under dist. So if in this case, I want to, okay, maybe let me make use of the create a folder called CSS and then put all these CSS files under this folder. So we'll do like this. So you go to node modules and then you go to Bootstrap, dist, and then CSS. So this line is going to take all the files under this CSS folder and then put them on this one. Cool. I'll do the same thing for the JavaScript side, the JavaScript folder, which is this. It's under JS. And I'll put this under a JavaScript folder instead. I'll do the same thing for jQuery. So jQuery is a JavaScript, it's JavaScript, and I'll put them in the same folder, but from jQuery. And dist. So all the files are under the dist folder. If we go to jQuery, over here, you'll find all the files under the dist folder to make use of them. Cool. And another thing is I want to host, or I want to get a route. So when I go to the server in the browser, I want to get this file. I want to host this HTML file. So I'll make an endpoint for that in the root endpoint. Sorry. So this is a callback function. After, okay, when you go to this root on the browser, this function will be called, this is called the middleware function, which is a callback function of what happens when you go to this path URL. What we want to do is to send the HTML file, the payment.html file, using send file. And we'll locate that file using path.join. And it's in public and it's called payment.html. And one last thing for now is to listen for the server on a specific port. So I'll define the port on top and give it a, let me do this back. And I'll display a message on the console, on the terminal console when the server is running. Maybe the message will say server running on port port. And then I'll just define the ports here. If you're using an environment, a safe environment, or an env file, you can get your ports from process.env.port, or just give it a value of whatever available ports you have. You can give that, you can give this variable that value. So I'll just give it a 3000, and the server will be listening on port 3000. Before we go and test this out, I want to write something on the HTML file, some content which will be displayed on the browser. And I'll give this a title of digital payment. And some basic content, maybe a div element containing a container, and just a simple message saying implementing the Yoco API. Cool. So if you run the server right now and go to the browser, we'll see this on the screen. how you run the server. We defined on the package.json file, we defined a script, a start script, which is going to run the server using the nodemon package. So we'll just say npm start. And then we'll go to the localhost port 3000 to see the file, the HTML file. I mean, if anyone has questions already, you can type them up. Yeah, I can type them on the, or I see a hands up. Yeah, Tino, you're welcome.
Yeah, what's up, Sabelo? I was just wondering, because I see you're using nodemon, but you didn't actually install it in your package.json. So how is that working?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think I should have said something. But from my side, I've installed nodemon globally. But if you don't have it, you can do something like this. You can install it as a package, as a dependency, install, and save it as a dev. Let me just do this. You can save it as a development dependency like this. Yeah, for me, the reason why I didn't install it is because it's installed globally.
Okay, cool. Makes sense. Thanks.
So yeah, so our HTML file has been hosted on the localhost 3000. It's working. One thing I want to do is I want to make use of the Bootstrap and jQuery that I installed. So I'll import it I'll import Bootstrap on our HTML file. So our Bootstrap, since we defined this folder, this CSS folder, we'll get our Bootstrap file under this folder. There's the style sheet and href. So Bootstrap is under CSS, bootstrap.mean.css. Cool. Also, want to include my own CSS file. Style sheet. It's called payment.css. I'll also add the JavaScript, the Bootstrap. So the JavaScript file is under the JS folder and bootstrap.mean.js. And I also include jQuery. So for jQuery, you need to put it on top of Bootstrap, otherwise you'll get an error. It's also under the JS folder, jQuery.mean.js. And I also include my own JavaScript file. It's called payment.js. And let me make use of Bootstrap classes. So I'll give this whole container a container fluid class, so that it can cover the whole page, and maybe add on 2 divs. So how Yoco works is that you can choose to make use of either the 2 implementation, which is the inline or the pop-up. So for the inline, Yoco already has a form, but what you need to do is mount it on your page. So we'll need a div for that. So we'll call this inline. And let me give it a heading, something, inline, that's right. And then, so to mount the form, you need an empty element. So I'll give a div empty element and a selector of Yoco inline. So you can call this whatever you want. I just chose to call it Yoco inline. It's just a selector I'll use to mount the form from the SDK, from Yoco SDK. Oh, and then another thing is that this needs to be inside a form tag, so that you'll be able to submit it after filling in your card information. Cool. And you also have to create a button, a submit button. So we'll call this pay. Maybe if you want to buy wings from Varsity Eats, you can, yeah, the wings cost 50 Rand. So if you want to buy wings from Varsity Eats, you can use the Yoco website. Yeah, you can use the option, the Yoco payment option, and pay 50 Rands. Another thing I want to include is an MTP tag where I'll be, yeah, this will indicate our feedback message after making the payment, whether the payment was successful or it was a failed transaction. So the feedback will be on this tag, on this empty tag. And another implementation is the pop-up. I'll create a div for a pop-up. And so for the pop-up, you only need a button. When you click a button, pop-up will be created. So we'll just create a button called pay 50 Rands. Just pay 50 Rands for the Yoco, for the Varsity Eats wings. Cool. So I'll give this, so I'll make use of Bootstrap, and I'll give this a class name of button, and maybe give it a color. Let me see. Maybe dark, make use of dark, and a margin of 5. So I'll do the same thing for the other button. But I'll make this outline. Let me give this a heading. So pop-up method. And one last thing is an MTP tag for the feedback message. Cool. So if you go to our browser, we will see some changes. Something like this. Let me fix the layouts so that we can get straight to implementing Yoco. Let me fix the layout real quick. So I'll use CSS. Okay, well, first thing, let me give this whole thing a background color, the whole page a background color of, let's use secondary. Let's give it a gray background color. And then put on some custom styles. Heights of 100%. And maybe align all the text to the center. And some other basic styles. I want to make the whole page 100%, height of 100%. Cool. So another thing I want to do, so I want to put this whole thing at the center of the page. So I'll use Flexbox for that. But first, I need to wrap this inside a div, inside a container, like that, and then put it inside a Flexbox container. I'll give it a height of 100%, and we'll put it at the center, align the items at the center, and put maybe some spaces around. Spaces around. So this should be it. Yeah, I mean, this is the basic layouts, the basic UI. We're not focusing on the UI, so this will be the, yeah, it will look like this. So from now we can go to implement our JavaScript. Cool. So one thing I need to do, I'll start with the inline. So I'll start implementing the inline, and then I'll go to the pop-up. So what I need from the inline, or to use Yoco, I need to instantiate the SDK, to declare the SDK. And before that, you need to get their SDK from their documentation. So to get to the documentation, you go to developer.yoco.com and then go under online payments. And then pop up, for example, I just want the SDK. Copy SDK and then paste it here. So you need to paste this on your HTML file, but on top before the payment.js file. Otherwise, it won't work. Nothing would work. So you save that, and now we can create our instance, where our SDK instance. We'll call it Yoco SDK, and we get that from window.yoco SDK. This takes in an object as an argument. It takes in an object with a property called public key. So you can get the public key in two ways. You can either create an account with Yoco, your business account. If you have a small business, you can create an account with Yoco. Or if you're just developing, you can get the testing public key from their documentation. So you go to resources and testing info.
Hi,
So just
just read on the chat, and I think someone's having trouble sort of seeing the whole page. If you can like stop your video, I don't know, like, yeah, just share only. I'm not sure if that's gonna solve the problem, but yeah.
What's the issue? I didn't get that.
Okay, looks like it's getting help, but it's saying you share screen is over your face, like the screen is over your face.
The screen is over my face. Let me check the chats and see what's the issue.
Okay, cool. Looks like Stay solved this problem. We can continue.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let me continue. Cool. So we got the public key from the documentation. So you go on the online payments and under resources, and then you go to testing info. You'll get the public and the secret key. We'll paste it here, and this is it for defining your SDK instance. Since we're starting with the inline, we have to create a form and then mount it on the page. To create the form, we need to do something like this: const inline. So we'll call it inline, the inline form, and you create that from the SDK and a function method called inline. So this function takes in an argument. An object is an argument that has a few properties. One of them is the amount that you're paying. In this case, since we're paying 50 rands, but the amount you need to put you need to put that in cents. Amount in cents, which is 5,000 in this case. And another property is currency. Currently, I think Yoco is only implementing the ZAR, the rand currency. I think that's the only currency they use at the moment. And then the last property, you need to specify what type of layout your inline form should be. So there's a layout. There are 3 types of layouts. There's basic layouts, there's plain layouts, and there's filled layouts. So I'll just show you all of them, but I prefer the basic layouts. So I'll start with that basic layout. So this is going to create a form which pays 50 rands and has a basic layout. And then after this, we need to mount this form onto your page under this empty div we created. So your form will go here. And how we do that is we say inline dot mount and then you select your element, which is class. It has a class name called Yoco inline. So this is just the class name of the div, of the empty div we created. Cool. And now if you go to our browser, we can see a form, a basic layout form which was created. Let me see. So this is how the basic form looks like. You have fields, you have 3 fields: your card number, your expiry dates, and your security code. This is, okay, let me show you the other layouts. I'll only be using the basic, so the plain layout is looking like this. Looks like this. And by the way, you can customize your form. Yeah, you can go to under documentation, you can go to inline, and under customization, you can choose how to customize your inline form, but I won't do that. I'll just use the basic layout. So the last layout is called field, and it looks like this. Looks like this. So you enter your card number, your expiry date, and your security code. Yeah, I'll just use the basic layout. Cool. Cool. And from there, what I want to do is that when I click the submit button, after you've clicked the button, after you've entered your card information, your card number, your expiry date, and your security code, you need to create a token which will be used to process the payment at the back end. And right now I want to listen for a submit event. So I'll use jQuery for that. So when you submit the button, when you submit this form by clicking the button, we'll get this form. So this is getting a form. It's getting this element, this whole element. And then when you submit that, what we want to do is, okay, the first thing I want to do, when you notice here, when you press this button, it always refreshes. I want to, yeah, I don't want that to happen. So I'll remove that functionality. Sorry. So I'll remove that by saying e.prevent default. So yeah, if you check that out, it won't refresh. So when you press the button, nothing happens, which is good. And so what I want to do when you submit the button is I want to create a token. Yeah, I want to initialize the payment by creating a token. You do that by saying inline, using the inline form instance. Say inline.create token. So this has a promise. It has a promise to check whether this was successful or not. So I'll catch the error and then maybe show it on the console. If there's an error, I'll show the error message. And then the promise takes in a response. And you can check if you have an error or not. To do that, you say if response.error is true. So if response.error is true, meaning there's an error, you need to do something. Since we created this empty p tag, maybe we'll want to display the error on that p tag. Let's get the tag. It's under inline p. And then we want to display some information on that tag. We'll say, maybe we'll display the error message. Error message, cool. And if there's no error, meaning your token was created successfully. But for now, I want to just show the response, what the response has. I'll just show that on the console, the browser console. Cool. So let's go to the browser and check some stuff. Cool. something is wrong. Let's check the. Okay, I made an error. So some spelling error. Where is this? Payment line 1. Okay, so I think this was a mistake. Cool. To test this out, Yoco has some test cards under online payments and resources testing info. There's some test cards. You can either use the successful transaction card or the failed transaction card. I'll just choose this one for now and then use that. And then for your expiry date, you can put any future dates. I'll put on December 2045. And the security code can be any 3 or 4 digit number. And we can pay. This has given us a response in the browser. So we have a token. This is the token that you need to process the payment. And you have some other information about your card. It has the brand, the expiry dates information. Yeah. So for now, since we know that this was working and we can get the token, we can process the payment at the back end. I don't know, maybe I should also use the failed transaction to see the response. It should be the same. Yeah, it shouldn't be different. So it's the same thing. So this was just the initialization process. It hasn't done anything with the payment. This shows that your transaction is ready to be processed. So it's charge ready. You can take the token and then pass it to your backend and then process the payment. Cool. Let's do that. So one thing I want to do is I want to create an endpoint at the backend. Creates a post endpoint, a post request endpoint. So app.post, and maybe call it pay or payment. Yeah. So for now, what I want to do is I want to pass the token to the backend and then display it on let's display it on the console, on the browser console. So I'll send this back to the front end and I'll send back the token. So the token is found. So when you send something, when you make a post request from your front end, you'll get the information under request.body. The data that you'll be sending, you'll get that information under request.body. So this is what I want to do for now. And here, when the token was successfully created, I want to make a fetch request. Fetch, sorry. And that's on the payment endpoint. So under I just need to add some basic information. So this is a post request, and I want to include some header. So the header will specify that you're sending JSON. So I'll send a token object in a JSON format, and then we need to specify that the content that's being sent to the back end is JSON. We do that by saying content type, specifying the content type. And then on the body, I need to send the token as an object, and I'll send it in the form of a JSON. So I'll stringify it and then send the object. So this object I'm sending will be in a JSON format. So inside it will have a token, and the token is found here. So it's found under the response.id. So it's response.id. That's where your token is. So after this request has been made, after the HTTP request has been made to the backend, we'll get a promise. So the promise, we need to process our data and make sure it's readable. So what we'll do is the results from the response, we change that into a JSON. We change that into JSON by saying results.json. And then we can now read the data. We're able to read the data. So this data is the data that you sent from your backend, which is the requested body. In this case, it will be just this whole thing, the token. So I'll just console that on the browser. I'll display it on the console in the browser as data. Cool. And then I'll catch an error if it happens. Maybe we can also do the same thing we did here. We'll just write the error on our MTP tag. So the error is we'll display the error message on the P tag we defined. Cool. So what I did here is that when you click a button, when you submit the form, I'm not expecting this because the code is correct. I'm not expecting this response. I'm expecting this to be executed. So a post request will be made to the backend from this endpoint. And we're also sending the token in a JSON format. And then from there, we're getting this data will be under requested body. So let's test this out from the browser. So let me just use this card. Seems like we got an error saying unexpected end of JSON inputs. Okay, I forgot to enter some line. The reason why we're getting this error is because we are sending data in a JSON format to the backend. What we need to do here is to parse that data so that it can be readable. We'll do that by using a middleware called express.json. Okay, cool. Express.json. And then we can share. So this will pass the JSON format object, and then we'll pass it back into a readable JavaScript object. And then we'll be able to send it back to the front end and display it on the browser console. So let me go and test that out again. Okay, this worked. We got a response, which is the token that we sent. So what happened is that after you submit the button, a post request was made to the backend and the token was sent. And then we got the token we got this whole object under request.body. And then we sent it back to the front end and then displayed it on the console. And this is just the token. It's just an object that we sent to the backend and we sent it back to the front end. Cool. So since that works, I want to do some useful information with this token. This is where we process our payment. So for you to be able to finish the transaction, you need to make a post request to one of the Yoco's endpoints. So they have a charge endpoint which you need to use to process the payment after you got the token. What I want to do is I'll go to the documentation and go get the endpoint. So it's under API reference, under charge API. So it is the reference you need. Cool. We'll use Axios to make the HTTP request. We'll import Axios, the package that we installed earlier. and make the HTTP request. So axios.post, it's a post request, and then you put on the URL that you copied from the documentation. And you have to also include some other data, which is the body. Under the body of the request, you need to specify your token, the token that was created on the front end. And we saw that this is under request.body. So request.body, the token. So that's your token. You also need to specify the fee, the price, the amount in cents. Is 50 rands or 5,000 cents. I know we did this in the front end, but it's also required to do this in the back end. We also need to specify the currency, which is the rand. That's all for your body. You also need to include a header. Your header has this is your header, XAuth. It's called XAuth secret key. And this is, you'll find this in the same place where you found your public key. So if you have a business account, you can have your own unique secret and public key. But if you just coding, you can get the test secret key from testing information. And then we'll paste this here. And another thing, if you're planning to deploy your application or your website online, you need to put these information, the public key, the public and the private key on a safe file. Maybe you want to use a .env file, since these are sensitive information. But I won't do that because these are just testing. Yeah, these are testing information. That's all you need for your header and your body. After processing the payment, you'll get a promise with the response, and then you see what you do with it. So that's where you find out whether your payment was successful or it was not successful. You get a promise with the response. So this is a successful payment. Let's send it back to the front end. Send the response.data. So response.data will have the information that that you need to indicate whether the information was successful or not. And we will catch that. We'll catch an error. So this option is when your transaction failed. It can be of any reason. The reason of failure can also include, let's say you don't have any money on your account, so you won't be able to make the transaction. You won't be able to buy the Varsity Twins. So what I want to do is also want to send this to the front end. So it's error. It's under error.response data. Yeah, we can just say that. So it's your error will be under error.response.data. Error is it's a big object which has a lot of information that you don't need. So we'll just we'll only get the data that's important to us. So another thing is if we run this, we'll get the response on the header, on the console. Cool. Let's go to our browser and test this out. Let's use one of the cards. So this is a failed transaction. It's a failed transaction. So you also get information. So information about the type of error you got. This one is an authentication error. They're saying we are currently experiencing issues. Please contact. So this is an internal error. I'm not sure if it's It's not on our side, but it should work now. So there was an error from their server. I think they are currently having a cool. Maybe I'm missing something. Let me see. Token amount in cents currency data. So what we're seeing here is the error which was displayed in the console. It means there was something wrong. Let me check. We used the correct card. We also used the correct expiry date and the security code. Let me rerun our server. Are there any questions so far? Anyone who has a question can ask. Okay, cool. So what we did is, let me go through what we have done already. We went to so we made a post request on our front end to our back end. And this took us here, and we made another post request to the Yoco API, the Charge API endpoint. And then we passed in the token that we got from the back end, which is from response.id. Also the amount in cents, the currency, and the token, the secret key, which you can get from your own personal business account or the test information from the documentation.
Sabza, I think there are a few questions in the chat. Have a look at them.
Check them out. Cool. So where should I start? Let me see.
The first one is from Roxanne. It says, can this be used for custom amounts?
Custom amounts. So you can use. Okay, I'm assuming you mean any amount. You want to pay any amount in using the API. So the initial payment, the initial fee you need to pay is 2 rand. That's the minimum. That's the minimum amount you need to pay, which is 2 rand. Yeah, so it can be any amount. I'm not sure if I understand the question. Did that answer? Yeah, did I answer the question? Cool. Is there any other question?
Second one is there a postman collection with the endpoints? Do you have a postman collection for the endpoint, maybe?
No, I'm not using Postman. So yeah, I won't be using Postman. But if you're coding along, you can make use of that. Also, I see another question says, how do you get the payment directly from front end? So you can't do that for Yoco. I think for security reasons, you can't make the payment directly in the front end. I've tried that and it gave me an error. So you need both front end and back end. So the back end is to process the payment using the token. Yeah, so it can't happen on the front end. Cool. So let me continue. You run the server again and see if I get the same thing. Okay, so I'll use the 411, yeah, the successful transaction card and any future date. Okay, looks like it's giving me API key missing. It's giving me an error. secret key missing. I think I did that. XAuth secret key. Oh, okay, it's a mistake. So I made a mistake. This is supposed to be a dash, not a underscore. Let's try that again. Cool. Okay, so we're getting a response. This is saying this transaction was successful. That's what we expected because this was a successful transaction test card. And you also get some, so here you get another piece of information, important piece of information, the charge ID. You can use the charge ID to make refunds. So if you want to implement refunds on your website, you can use this charge ID. And then you can get more information from the documentation. So if you go under online payments, API reference, and then refund API, and then yeah, you can do that there. I won't cover the refund part. So this works, it gives me a positive response. Let's try the failed card, the failed transaction card. Cool. So we get an error. This is what yeah, we expected an error because it's a failed transaction. Yeah, the message says your card has it has reached its limits. It means you don't have yeah, you don't have enough money on your card to make this transaction. Cool. And from that, I want to display this instead of displaying it on the console. I want to display that so the user can see displayed on the screen on that empty p tag. It's under inline p and HTML. Cool. Well, so first thing we need to check, we have to check whether it's an error or a successful transaction. So if it's an error, it will probably have a response like this. So data will have error code. So if it has an error code, it means you got an error, and then you can display something. You display something on the page. So in this case, I'll just display the message that we got from. I'll just display this message, which is it's found under data.display message. Cool. And if the payment was successful, the transaction was successful, we'll display a successful payment message. Payment successful. Cool. All right. Let's test this out, and then we are done with our inline, and then we'll do our pop-up after. So let's test this out. So I'll use both cards. Let's start with the successful transaction. And so the payment was successful, and we get a feedback message on our page. Let's also try the other one. Cool, so we get another feedback which says this card's limit has been reached. Please refer to your bank account. So this is good because it's not a developer's problem. This is a user's problem. If they don't have enough money, then we can't continue with the transaction. Yeah. So that's it for your inline implementation. So let's quickly go into the pop-up. So under pop-up, we created a button, which when you click this button, pop-up is created. So let's do that. Let's do the same thing.
Sabelo,
Oh, yeah.
do they have the Python API? Like, do they have like support in Python for the API? I guess that's what Willie is asking.
I mean, if you are able to make the HTTP request on Python, then yeah, it's supported. So let me just label this and call it inline method, and then make a pop-up. Make a pop-up. Cool. So for pop-up, when you click this button, we want to show we have to create a pop-up. So I'll listen for an event under pop-up button under pop-up, and then maybe not the button. Let's say when you submit the form, when you submit the whole form, okay, no, let's actually do the button. Yeah. So when you click this button, we want to create a pop. We want to show the pop-up. We'll do that using the SDK that we defined on top. We'll use the SDK instance and do this yoco.sdk.show pop-up. So we have a method called show pop-up, and it takes in an object with a few properties. So the properties are almost similar to what we did in inline, but we have some extra stuff. So we need the amount in cents, which is 5,050 rand, and we need the currency. You can choose to add the name. This name will be displayed on your pop-up. I'll show you when we test it out. So I'll just call this maybe Varsity Eat wings. So the Varsity Eat wings are Varsity Eat wings are 50 rand. So yeah, this makes sense. And one last property is the callback function. It takes in a response. This is an argument to the callback function, and we can do the similar thing. We can check if there's an error or not. If there's an error, if response.error is true, we want to display the error message on the p tag that we created on this empty p tag. We'll do this pop-up p tag and write the error message. And then if there is no error, meaning the token, so this method, the show pop-up method, creates the token. So you don't have to do what you did here with the inline. So this creates the token at the same time. So if there's no error, it means the token was created successfully, and you can make an HTTP request to the backend, which is actually the same thing. I'll just copy and paste this. It's the same thing as this. Yeah, I'll paste this. Now I'll change a few things. I'll change this pop-up to show the message on the pop-up side, not the inline. And then this one. Cool. So what this does is that when you don't get an error, this will make an HTTP, a post request to this endpoint, to the payment endpoint, and then it will pass the token to the backend, and it will get a response. So when you pass the token, you can when you pass the token, we'll process the payment by calling this endpoint and passing the token in the body together with the amount in cents and currency. We'll also pass in the header with the secret key, and then we'll see if the response is a successful payment or a failed transaction. And then this will be sent back to the front end via data, via the promise. So the data can either be an error or a successful transaction. Cool. Let's test this out. So when you click this button, it should give us a pop-up. And this is the name that you specified here. So you can give this any name. There's also an optional a property description. Let me just include it. Description, payment for CTE twins. So this will be, yeah, this won't show on your pop-up, but it's a description of your payment. And then let's try this again. Let's try this again. So let's test it out using both of the cards. And so when you click a button, this is processing the payment, and we should get a response here. So the payment was successful. And let's also try the failed transaction. Cool. So we get both feedback. We get the failed transaction feedback and also the successful transaction message. Yeah. So I want to do like one last thing. It doesn't really matter, but let me just do it. I'll just add some few stuff. Maybe change the color of the feedback message so that you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Green. Cool. So I'll add some few classes here. So if there's an error, I want to give this p tag a class name called error. So I'll just do that using jQuery inline, no, this pop up p, and then we add a class called error. Cool. So I'll do the same thing for the other types of errors, which is this one, and also this one. So I'll do the same thing for inline. But I'll change this. Cool. Copy and error message. Cool. Okay, I'll do the same thing for the success message. Just maybe change it to green. Success, but this will be success. Yeah. Yeah, this is it for that. And then for the pop-up, let me do the same thing for pop-up. So success is here. Pop-up, add a class. Okay, no, I think I did this. Okay, cool. Successful. Okay, I didn't do it here. Inline to pop up. Yeah. So let's do this one more time, and then we will be almost done. Start with the inline. So maybe for the inline, let me use the successful transaction. Let's see the response. So it's a green, and then for the pop-up, I'll do the failed transaction. Cool. So this is it for the implementing Yoco API. So it's simple. You only need two implementation. You can choose to use the inline method or the pop-up method. I personally like the pop-up. Is simple. You don't have to create the button or the mounting of the element of the form. Just create a button, and then when you click it, it should show you a pop-up like that. And for more information, you can go to the documentation. The other things that I did not cover, like the types of errors. So when you click this, when you close this this pop-up, there's a callback function you need to, so you can choose to use that or not, on what happens when you close that. So everything is here on the documentation. Yeah, so I'll take questions if there are any.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sabza. Yeah, if you have any questions for Sabelo, please, you can unmute yourself. Also, if you have any questions regarding the hackathon, you can ask me. Yeah.
Cool, thank you everyone. I hope everyone learned something valuable today. Hopefully you can also use this on your hackathon tomorrow if you are attending. It's not required, but you can use it maybe for bonus points.
The hackathon is going to be 30 hours, so it's going to start at 12 Friday, and it's going to end at that's at 6. It's 6. It's not 30 hours on Saturday.
I'm sure people are excited.
Just trying to make sure I'm right, but yeah. And also just to clarify, it was the opening event will be at 11 a.m. On Friday, not 11 p.m. Made a mistake there. Okay, I think we should stop the recording then.